Imagine being accused of manipulating someone's words to make them look like they're inciting violence. That's exactly what's happening between the BBC and former U.S. President Donald Trump. The BBC has issued an apology for editing a Panorama episode in a way that made it seem like Trump directly called for violent action. But here's where it gets controversial. While they've said sorry, they're refusing to pay Trump the hefty compensation he's demanding. The heart of the matter lies in how the BBC presented excerpts from a speech Trump gave on January 6, 2021. The BBC acknowledges that the editing created the mistaken impression of a continuous statement urging violence. To be precise, the problematic edit appeared in a 2024 Panorama program. Trump's legal team is not happy, to put it mildly. They initially threatened to sue the BBC for a staggering $1 billion, £759 million, unless the corporation issued a full retraction, apologized, and provided financial compensation for the alleged damage to Trump's reputation. The fallout was severe, with the resignations of key BBC figures like Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness. It's worth noting that the BBC has reached out to the White House for an official comment on the situation. And this is the part most people miss. This isn't an isolated incident. A similar editing issue surfaced regarding a 2022 Newsnight broadcast. The Daily Telegraph revealed that the BBC had doctored another Trump speech in a similar fashion 2 years prior to the Panorama episode. To clarify the specifics of the problematic edit, the BBC stated in its corrections and clarifications section that the Panorama program was reviewed following criticism of how Trump's speech had been edited. They conceded that the editing unintentionally presented excerpts from different points in the speech as a single, continuous section. According to sources, BBC Chair Samir Shah sent a personal letter to the White House to explicitly convey his and the corporation's remorse to President Trump for the editing of his January 6, 2021 speech. The BBC spokesperson also affirmed that the documentary would no longer be rebroadcast on any platform. However, the BBC is standing firm on one crucial point. While they regret the way the video clip was edited, they strongly disagree that there's any basis for a defamation claim. To understand the context, let's look at what Trump actually said in his January 6, 2021 speech. Initially, he stated, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women." Later in the speech, he added, "And we fight like hell." The Panorama program, however, presented it as, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight like hell." The implication, according to Trump and his lawyers, is that this spliced version makes it sound like he was directly inciting people to fight at the Capitol. Speaking to Fox News, Trump said his January 6 speech had been butchered and defrauded viewers. The BBC, in its response to Trump's lawyers, outlined 5 primary arguments for why they don't believe they have a case to answer. First, they claim they didn't have the rights to distribute the Panorama episode on their U.S. channels, and therefore didn't do so. The documentary was geographically restricted to UK viewers on BBC iPlayer. Second, they argue that the documentary didn't cause Trump harm, as he was re-elected. Third, they contend that the clip wasn't designed to mislead, but rather to shorten a long speech, and that the edit wasn't done with malicious intent. Fourth, they assert that the clip was never meant to be viewed in isolation. It was just 12 seconds within an hour-long program that also featured voices supporting Trump. Finally, they emphasize that opinions on matters of public concern and political speech are heavily protected under U.S. defamation laws. A BBC insider revealed that there's strong internal confidence in the corporation's defense. The other misleading edit, which surfaced earlier on Thursday, involved a 2022 Newsnight program. The edit was slightly different from the Panorama one. In this version, Trump is shown saying, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." This was immediately followed by a voiceover from presenter Kirsty Wark saying, "And fight they did," over footage from the Capitol riots. Mick Mulvaney, former White House chief of staff, criticized the Newsnight clip, stating that the video spliced together Trump's speech, making it appear as though the "Fight Like Hell" line was directly connected to the call to walk to the Capitol. A spokesperson for Trump's legal team told The Telegraph that it was now clear that BBC engaged in a pattern of defamation against President Trump. This whole situation raises some serious questions. Did the BBC intentionally mislead viewers? Or were these simply unfortunate editing errors? And even if they were errors, does the BBC have a responsibility to compensate Trump for any perceived damage to his reputation? Where do you draw the line between fair editing practices and potentially defamatory manipulation? What responsibility do news organizations have when editing long speeches for brevity? Let us know what you think in the comments below.